I'll say founder.
Hello, my name's Cliff Freilich. I'm the executive director of Cinema St. Louis. We're happy to be talking about the film Growing for Good. And let's first hear from our filmmakers, and we also have the subjects, so they're going to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Morgan Paar, cinematographer and producer.
Hi, I'm Nguyen, filmmaker, everything.
Hey there. Hello there. I'm Arthur Culbert, one of the co-founders of the Central West End Farm.
And I'm Nancy Culbert, his farmer wife.
Great. So let's start with the filmmakers, as we did with the intros, and then we'll get into the meat of the subject as the discussion unfolds. So how did you two, you're also life partners as well as filmmaking partners, correct?
Correct.
So I'm curious as to how you first encountered the farm, and then how you made the decision to make a film about it, and the steps along the way.
Sure. We had actually interviewed Barbie, who is with the pantry. We had interviewed her about a year before for another project that we were working on. And so we knew of her. We had left St. Louis for a while, and we returned and wanted to do, we had been doing a bunch of commercial films and they weren't very fulfilling. So we wanted to do something that had meaning, something that had meaning in the world. And I thought of Barbie, and I was speaking with my mother who lives in St. Louis, and she said, well, there's somebody that works with Barbie that has a farm, an organic farm that gives food, and it's really interesting, and maybe you should give them a call. So we called Arthur and Nancy, met them about a week later, and 2 days after we met, we started shooting.
And where are you two located?
We move around a lot. But we right now, and for the last 2.5 years, we've been about half a mile from the farm in the Central West End.
Okay, so you're here in St. Louis right now.
Yes.
Right now, yep.
All right, to the Culberts, I'm curious as to, were you skeptical at all? Had you been the feature, I'm sure you must have been written about any number of times, and perhaps the subject of a television piece or two along the way. Were you at all skeptical about making yourselves and the farm the subject of a documentary?
Oh, I embraced it. We welcome the opportunity to be able to use this vehicle in terms of film to be able to tell the story about the issue of hunger in our country and all around the world. So no, it was wonderful. And you know, they were so professional, being able to be there but not be there, and just really kind of being part of the farm and being able to film, because they were there so much, the day-to-day operations of what really happens there over the 9 or 10 months that the farm operates.
And so how long did you both shoot during it? Was it the entire cycle, or did it extend even beyond that?
It was the entire cycle. We started right when when the Culberts started putting the seeds in the ground, all the way to the end when they were removing the, I guess the dead plants.
Yeah, so we started in April, middle of April, and our last shoot was December 20th, where they had a book signing, an event. We shot 44 days, and it was a much bigger shoot than we anticipated.
So Morgan references the book. Would you like to chat a little bit about the book that you've also produced?
Nancy?
Oh, sure. The title of the book is called The Gift Garden. It is written for about 10-year-olds, fourth graders. It's written from their perspective, and it's started with an essay or reflection Arthur wrote when he was disappointed one day that he was scheduled to go and be with the students at New City School, which has always been a huge love of his and a component that's really enhanced the whole experience, only to find out that the teacher wasn't going to be able to be there. There was going to be a substitute, so that the visit to the farm wasn't going to happen. So it started as an essay, a reflection on that, and he invited me to look at it, and we started talking about it and expanding it, and it seemed like we were called to develop the characters and put it into a book form in the hopes that others might be inspired in their young lives to begin to consider service as a component of their lives that seems to flow naturally. So creating that opportunity for children at an early age to be exposed to elements that we intentionally included in the book, such as diverse populations and people experiencing food crises in their own lives and being able to talk about it with friends and different things. So it's kind of a lighthearted attempt at normalizing what we know are situations in some young people's lives in particular.
And if people are curious, where can they find the book?
On Amazon.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's simple as that.
It's beautifully illustrated. That was a really challenge of the book. We would come here, as I said, off air for 3 winters to write, after the farm season. And we needed an illustrator. And it was like finding somebody you were going to enter this relationship with, because he or she had to convey visually, again, through these illustrations. She lived here in St. Augustine. She never came to St. Louis. And we were able to show her photos of different parts of it that she created the illustrations for. It was amazing in terms of all that. So it was quite fun. It was hard. It was a challenge. And but it's good. People like it. And between the film and the book, we really hope that this is kind of an arsenal that we can use to talk about hunger and the issues that are important to us.
And the last I heard also, Cliff, I believe our book's available still at Left Bank in
Great.
town. So if people want to support something more locally. And then the third component of that, just so you know, is that the kids dubbed it a gift garden. That was the fourth graders' name for it, because everything we grow is a gift to others. And so it's also become a model for other gift gardens. So we're not the only gift garden anymore. We're the original one, but a new one is just growing its first sprouts as we speak. Was just begun in March, right?
Yeah, 174-year-old African-American church on T.E. Huntley and Locust or whatever there, using the same model and stuff like that. So there's probably Washington, probably 9 or 10 of them, both nationally as well as most of them in St. Louis. Yeah, so good stuff.
Great. Before we talk a little bit more about the garden itself and the good that it does, what are your hopes for the film? How do you plan on getting the word out with regard to the movie?
That's us?
Yes, to you guys.
Well, the main thing is film festivals, and this is the first. But we have right now we have a little over 20 film festivals that we plan to enter. If we can afford all of that. Each one's a little more expensive than we anticipated. And then finally, we're talking to people over at the St. Louis Public Television, and we're trying to get it shown on there. And everybody that hears about this says, oh, this is perfect for public television. So fingers crossed.
Well, I'll do what I can. I have a few connections over at 9 Network, so perhaps we'll be able to persuade them that this is something they should embrace.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about the garden itself. And, obviously the film itself tells you about its origins, et cetera. But go ahead and just sort of encapsulate the motivations that caused you to decide to do this project.
I used to walk by this vacant lot on my way to work. I was the founding president and CEO of what was becoming a very successful nonprofit in St. Louis called Health Literacy Missouri. It was the standard for our nation and worldwide, actually, at the time. And I was getting this calling that, maybe I should step away from that, and maybe this is really where I needed to spend my time. And one day I made this decision, what could one person do with this lot of land? Because St. Louis has a lot of land, I would say to myself. And so I found out who owned it, and I called him up. I got to work one day, and this smart intern, Googled down within 10 minutes, we found out who owned this piece of land. And I very formally said hello, introduced myself, and I said, could I start a garden there? And silence, I'll call you back. Next day, calls back. He says, yes, I'll put water in for you, but you can't have a car wash. No car washes. So we entered into this gentleman's handshake agreement that extended over 10 years. No leases, no this, no that, where he allowed us to use this land that was recently valued at $750,000 and to just use this. And very early on, we were fortunate enough to meet the principal, the head at New City School. My background is in education. I'd always wanted children to be part of this. And I said, hey, you know, you think the kids could get involved? You know, boom. You know, we figured out it was fourth graders whose theme was citizens making a difference. It's a very integral part of their work, you know, within school and the like. And I set about, you know, to do this. You know, we had no money, no nothing, not a lot of experience, you know, horrible land. They had buried 3 buildings under it, you know, so, you know, bed by bed, you know, really inch by inch. There's a song, you know, Peter, Paul, and Mary in terms of growing a bed. And it's always been a farm. In order to be considered a farm, you have to harvest 1,000 pounds or more each year. And we've always had 1,200 pounds or more that we've harvested from the small piece of property. And so that's the name Central West End Farm. And it's been run always by volunteers. And there are 2 pantries that are key to it. And this will be our 10th growing cycle this year, Cliff. And we average, you know, over 3,000 pounds of fresh fruit and vegetables. It gets harvested each week. Some weeks is as much as over 100 pounds in the hot months, and you can't even tell that it's been taken and stuff like that, you know. So it's wonderful. I mean, it builds enormous community. You know, it's you know, it's good for older adults, intergenerational. It's a stress relief. There's just so much good about that. And again, you know, St. Louis could be, you know, a model because we do have so much land. And in fact, we have some really good things happening around farming, you know, in Missouri and specifically intentionally within the city of the greater St. Louis area around all this that we were a big part of. And so lots of good things are happening like that. And so it was big responsibility. You know, we would start in March, and the latest we went was December 15th one year. There was a snowstorm. We were still harvesting in December. And that Sunday, Nancy and I were walking home. We were saying, I think it's going to get too cold. And sure enough, the next day it was really cold. So I texted the one teacher, and it was kind of a cold day, and the kids weren't ready for it. And they would come down in 40-minute shifts, and they managed to harvest the rest of the garden that day, close to like 120 pounds. And that weekend at the one pantry was the Christmas party. And so we were able to have all these additional greens for the Christmas party as part of all that. So quite magical in terms of everybody from, you know, the mayor to parents to kids. And, you know, it's just, for me, a real blessing, you know, to be able to kind of be a small part of that. And just wonderful people, Morgan and Vaughn included, you know, when they called and said, hey, please come, love it. You know, this is great. You know, so, you know, these great relationships and friendships that have developed through the farm, you know, and for others too. I mean, for many people, it's a fixture in the neighborhood, you know, as part of all that. So people take great pride in it now. And I suspect it's there until, you know, the gentleman who owns it, his son says it's not there anymore.
I'm curious, have you ever tracked the number of families and people that you think the garden has helped over the years?
We have. So data has been collected from day one in terms of how many pounds are harvested each week. You know, we have all that historical data. And last year, we think we helped feed
2,500 families.
Yeah, 2,500 families last year, Cliff, across both food pantries over that period of time.
That's remarkable. And how many volunteers in total have worked with you over those 10 years?
In total, 100, way more than that. I mean, if you include like the baseball team at WashU and a Brawny group and, you know, the people who come, who are volunteers, they come in and work. Everybody works. Doesn't matter who you are. And you don't take food home with you. So I would say if we use that, hundreds and hundreds. I mean, really.
Definitely upwards of 200 to maybe 300, I'd say.
Just as kids alone from the
Yeah,
city.
yeah. Well, and that's not counting
Yeah,
in the
no.
city.
So 5 minutes. I mean, lots of people have volunteered here, you know,
I'm curious, some of those fourth graders are 10 years later and now young adults. Have any of them come back to work on the farm with you?
Yes, people keep in touch. You'll see them at a farm market, over in Tower Grove, and they'll reintroduce themselves. It's made enormous differences. One summer after I had the fourth grader, I get a call from parents that could we come some Sunday for coffee? I said, of course. They were so proud to show me what their son was so turned on by this. Take the entire backyard, turned it into a garden. He took his tree fort and figured out that if he took sacks of peat moss, he could grow things out of it, and it could hang down. He had vines hanging down, growing and stuff. And so for some kids, really, 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 really connected. Our two longest running volunteers, he graduated from John Burroughs this year. He started as a fourth grader. Another woman started when she was about 6th or 7th grade, probably did it for about 6 or 7 years right there in the neighborhood, and just wonderful, in terms of all that. So people have really stayed in touch.
And we recently got a note from one of the New City School fourth graders who's about to celebrate the mitzvah and is going to use that as mitzvah project. So is preparing to undertake that portion right now. We've also had a number of interns, and some of them have kind of had that option cracked open to them about all the possibility within, working with the environment and the health properties, just of having your hands in the dirt, finding out, exposing people to the fact that these foods that they eat don't come in plastic bags or brown paper bags, they come in dirt, and to, witness that kind of exposure too has been really, really remarkable. I wanted to side note that the only time we didn't give the produce to the pantries was the weekend after Michael Brown's murder. And we were packing up the car to deliver, and we made some phone calls, and the people who actually lived in Ferguson were in very desperate need at that point, if you might remember what it was like up there. So we went up to Red's Barbecue, which was one of the only places that stayed open throughout the riots and everything, and asked him if he could get it into the hands of the local people who needed it most, and he assured us that he would. So that was a pretty cool thing to get to be a part of.
Morgan and Mon, you have the possibility of expanding this short into a feature, it seems to me.
Yeah. Well, I think we already have enough footage for 2 or 3 features, but
yeah, when we first approached this project, we thought it was going to be like a 5-minute piece, but then we realized so much that the Culberts were doing, with the kids, the school, the pantries, and the volunteers, and so we had to make it even longer, a longer piece.
yeah, we really thought it was going to be like shoot 4 or 5 days, do an interview, and we're out.
Yeah.
That's the nature of documentary, isn't it? They
Yes.
suck you in.
Yeah.
Oil and green, right?
Let's talk about how things are right now. Obviously, with COVID-19, it's only multiplied the need. So many people out of work, the desperation that is in many communities as far as the need for food and the inability, obviously, to get fresh food, especially. So what's the impact on the farm? Have you been able to, obviously you're limited as far as how much you can actually produce, but you obviously keep in touch with the food pantries. How are things going right now?
Well, I think you are correct. There's a greater need than ever. There's never been, more of a need to be able to help in terms of both financially and food. And so again, I would say not only what we do at the farm, but by virtue of the fact that a church, a synagogue, a school also have developed gift gardens. So not only is it our 3,500, there's probably another 3,500 pounds that are coming from other sources now that are going to these food pantries. But there's just enormous need. And but there has been a great response. I mean, really in St. Louis. So for our 10-year anniversary, what we did recently, Cliff, we said we'd like to raise $10,000 to give to these these 2 existing food pantries and a new one. And turns out we raised $12,000 in a week, you know, and with no GoFund, just simply off of our website, off of our Instagram and Facebook page, and the generosity of folks. It was amazing, you know, in terms of this. 78 people, a 10-year-old and his 8-year-old, 7-year-old sister, 1725 combined from their piggy bank. You know, another woman, part of her stimulus check. You know, one of the women who volunteers there, her dad was so moved, you know, by what she does. You know, he very limited income, gave part of his. So like all these people who really, you know, value that type of efforts, you know, that's community-based and growing for good, just really surprised us in terms of all that. So there's a great need. And again, I think this is going to be, you know, wonderful. We're going to really help promote it. You know, I need to better understand, you know, even after today, kind of what we might be able to do and stuff like that. But, you know, we have a pretty big circle, and, you know, it'd be cool if we had like a film party. I mean, whatever, I don't know. But how do we promote the film festival, you know, during this time? And then as we go forward,
we have a big circle because everybody's invited.
Everybody's invited.
It's ever-expanding.
Limitless.
Now, before we started recording, we had a little chat about human rights and access to food as a human right. I know you wanted to chat a little bit about that, so I want to give you this opportunity to talk about that.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yes. Well, when we were writing our children's book, A Gift Garden, I was reviewing the artwork that past and current 4th grade students had done. Along with that, many had submitted reflections on their time in the garden through essays and poetry and things like that. And one of the children had written, "I feel so at peace every time I'm in the garden. I love the work that we do. And I also love knowing that we're addressing human right number 25. And I said to Arthur, "Any idea what human right number 25 is?" I mean, I literally did not remember ever being exposed to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And right in its preamble, it states quite clearly that it's to be disseminated in the school systems. And I was involved in a school system or two, so it seems like it should have crossed my plate somewhere. Anyway, that's what broke that open for us to learn more about what the children were learning so that we could write what was more relevant to their knowledge. And then that led me to take an online class that next winter time while we were down here working on the book. There was Amnesty International offered an online class on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And during that class with people from all over the world, one of my fellow students wrote that she lived in a country where they successfully implemented the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So I wrote her in a sidebar. I said, "Where do you live? I want to know where that place is." And she said, "On the island of Malta." And I again turned to Arthur and said, "Any idea where Malta is?" So, see a pattern here? We're definitely lifelong learners. Anyway, that was the beginnings of our pilgrimage that we felt called to go on. We were starting with Malta, and we also happened to be studying St. Paul at the same time, and learned that he had shipwrecked on Malta. And when we see things coalescing like this, we just try to let them flow together. So that's what led to what we thought was going to be our 3-month pilgrimage and became our 3-week awakening.
All right, well, let's wrap things up with the fact that you've referenced the fact that you're down. We'll let you specify where down is, and the fact that you have essentially moved on from the garden in the sense that you've handed off the baton to others who are going to be continuing it, and talk a little bit about what you plan on doing.
What I plan on doing?
Both of you.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I've really been looking forward to this. I mean, I really want to be able to continue being able to talk about human rights and food scarcity and hunger in our country, and use it in a way that I'm just not out there selling our book, but rather I think this is a much better vehicle, you know, to get people together in small groups through libraries and like whatever, and begin to talk about and show people that they can do this. And so I'm excited to do that. I'm actually really excited that I'm unplugged for the first time in my life, you know, in a way that, you know, I get really involved and I feel completely not like that right now, you know, during this phase. And it was a very intense 10 years of quote unquote being retired. You know, I left the work world, you know, over 10 years ago. And that I did this full time for 10 years. It was a full-time job. You know, we moved, you know, within 500 yards of the farm, you know, literally, you know, to be able to be there because, you know, it requires, you know, a day-to-day work, you know, as part of all that. And I have farm injuries, you know. So what am I doing? I'm going swimming when we're done. I've been in the ocean already today. So it's really cool. My biggest activity right now is trying to help get Donald Trump not elected, you know, Joe Biden get elected. I mean, I feel that's my biggest responsibility right now as a citizen, to be quite honest about it. And so to really kind of focus our time here to do that and to take good care of ourselves. This is a really challenging time. I feel so fortunate that I'm in a place, you know, that I can take good care of myself. Because when we were in Rome, we were on buses with people in our faces, packed for days, you know. So we, you know, we're COVID negative, you know, we've been tested and the like, and we feel, you know, we've kind of had our, you know, and we're hope to stay healthy. But, you know, 10,000 cases in Florida yesterday. I mean, it's like, it's really weird. It's a weird time for all of us, you know. So, so that's what I plan to do, you know, try to see tomorrow.
We're hopeful about that.
And tell people where you are exactly.
In St. Augustine, Florida. And Nancy might have a little say something different to say what your plans are.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is tying up some of the things that we've had. The foundation that was established for us, once we sent the checks or had the checks sent, it was pretty much a zero balance. So we said we don't need to have a foundation anymore. So we let that go. And it's exciting to be able to kind of, I'm calling it the closing tabs part. We started a little blog when we left called Bearing Hope as we went forward on our pilgrimage. So we're in the process of distilling what we learned during this experience, the same 3 months time that we expected, and some contrast there. And that'll be nice to have that taken care of. I'm thinking about a jigsaw puzzle after that, but I don't know when I'll get to it. And I'd like to work with Black Lives Matter somehow also.
Yeah, we were very involved with the start of Black Lives Matter when we were back in St. Louis, you know, and big part of the Black community as part of all that. So from a distance, we've still stayed very involved, you know, in certain ways and whatnot. So
miracles of COVID is that we're able to be together here today.
Yeah.
We're still able to be with our church community from St. Louis, which was one of the very hard things to leave behind. Morgan and Vaughn, it is so great to see you guys.
Yeah, we haven't
You
seen you
too.
And
We're so proud of your work. I'm so thrilled to be a little part of this.
Thank you.
You know, it's just been to watch these guys labor, you know, doing all the various aspects of what it takes to make a documentary as a two-person, you know, operation. So it's inspiring, you know, to watch these guys kind of put this all together. So it's been great, you know, to be a part of it. You know, so proud, you know, to be able to kind of showcase their work and stuff like that.
And I want to apologize. Morgan and Vaughn taught us a very valuable lesson in the course of these interviews. And I totally blew it today. You asked questions in our responses. We should have restated the questions. I apologize. I heard myself fail to do that more than once, but I couldn't quite get to
It's okay in this instance because people are actually hearing the questions being asked, whereas in a documentary you don't want the filmmakers to be present necessarily unless that's part of the plan. And let's conclude with our filmmakers. Speaking of which, you know, COVID-19 has obviously caused you, no doubt, to abandon some plans, but you have, and just getting a film made is difficult enough, but getting it seen is always just as challenging, if not more so. So you have that to cope with. But do you have any sort of projects percolating right now?
We have a couple. Before we came to St. Louis, we lived in Asia for about 2 years. We shot a lot in Cambodia, Australia, and New Zealand. So we have a few projects that we need to finish up from that time period. And then we were looking at a project in San Francisco, and COVID probably won't let us do that anytime soon. But if we're able to travel again, we might head over to the West Coast to do hopefully a short film. That's it.
Yeah.
One never knows, does one?
Never know.
Well, we hope that perhaps we can keep you connected to St. Louis as we move forward in the future. You're obviously very peripatetic. You're world travelers, but we hope that now that we've got you in the family, so to speak, that you continue to be part of it. Yes. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Appreciate having you as part of the showcase.
Thanks so much, Cliff.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot
very
for
much,
having
Cliff.
us. Bye.
Take good care. Great to see you guys.
See you, Arthur and Nancy.